Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast. When does unity become a bad thing? And how dangerous can the worship of aliens really be? Guys, today we're talking about the Church of Unitology from the video game franchise Dead Space. We're back with our series going through religions that are in our fandoms. I am Joshua Noel, and I'm here with the one and only, I don't know, the alien that created us all, TJ, Tiberius One Blackwell. How's it going?
It's going. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for making humans
You're
turn
welcome.
them into necromorphs or something like that. Yeah, guys, I am excited to talk about Dead Space. This is going to be a fun episode. Part of our religions franchise, I mentioned that earlier, so you can find that link below if you want to see all of the other religions and fandoms episodes we've done this year as part of our annual theme. Before I keep going on other rants, though, we have to talk about what we've been geeking out on lately. TJ, mine's a weird one, but I think you'll appreciate it. I've been geeking out on Pinocchio. So Mike Mignola and Lenity Snicket, am I saying that name right? I feel like I'm not. Yeah, they together did a graphic novelization of the original Pinocchio. Then Scott Mignola wrote a follow-up to the original Pinocchio book. So I've been going through all these, reading and comics, and as well as an actual book. Scott Mignola is just a book where Mike Mignola illustrated the cover, and the cover looks super sick. But yeah, so I've just been geeking out on Pinocchio and enjoying these stories, the retelling and the continuation, and it's been pretty sick. DJ, what you been geeking out on lately?
You've seen the Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's
the best one.
Not really that much like the original story, but it is still pretty good.
It's really good.
It's better than the Disney one. It's the best one on TV, I think. But I might like the graphic novelization better. But it has an unfair advantage of Mike Mignola.
It's true.
DJ, what have you been geeking out on lately?
So, I guess it's kind of past now, but I just mentally I'm stuck on Spectre Divide. It's like
what is that?
It was a closed playtest of a game that is not out, and now the playtest is over. It's been over for like a week, but it's really hard to move on. So just thinking about it.
Yeah,
great game.
I get that. I do get that. Man, I've not played it obviously because it's not out yet. But now that I'm on Kingdom Hearts 3, and yes, I'm playing through all the Kingdom Hearts games again. I do miss Kingdom Hearts 2. It's been a couple weeks, and yeah. Anyway, yeah, of course. Guys, if you're listening to this, please take a moment to rate and review our show. If you're on Spotify, you can hit the little 3 dots and go down and rate it. If you're on Apple Podcasts, scroll down, you can rate and review there. And if you're on your laptop, go over to Podchaser, podchaser.com, rate and review us there. That helps us more than the other ones. For some reason, it does something with algorithms when you rate us high there. So give us a good rating and review. We'd appreciate it. Also, we want to thank one of our supporters, Russell Gentry. You make this happen. We love you. You're awesome, Russell. I promise I'm going to respond to your text. And remember, you guys can also support our show if you want your own shout out on Apple Podcasts or on Captivate or on Patreon. Those links are also down in the description. Again, also in the description is a link to that Year of Religions theme that we've been doing. So, without further ado, let's jump into the main episode. We're talking about one of my favorite video games, Dead Space. Let's kick this off. TJ, what is Dead Space? Just kind of give us like a general premise for those who don't really know what we're talking about.
So Dead Space basically is Isaac Clarke, the engineer, kind of thrown into the alien apocalypse, and like an alien zombie apocalypse. And you play Isaac Clarke, and your goal is to stop it.
Yeah. And it's one of those games, to me, it has a really cool story, a lot of stuff you could dig into, but I also feel like it's one of those games that you absolutely could skip all the story, mute, and just kill alien zombies and have a good time. Because
you don't have to like get into the story at all. You just want to go kill a bunch of really cool aliens.
Yeah.
Okay.
And something about like the aesthetic, the way they do things, like it starts with like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and this little kid singing it with some creepy music, and like the whole aesthetic is actually one of those things, like one of the very rare IPs that actually kind of invokes a little bit of fear in me, a little bit of anxiety, which is part of the fun. And then the idea of necromorphs in general, like necromorphs are just scarier than normal zombies. So TJ, could you explain what a necromorph is?
Oh my goodness. So it's like a zombie, but with swords for hands and feet. They're also really fast, really sneaky.
Yeah, and headshots don't do anything.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say like a main mechanic of the game, but something that they make very clear to you is your weapon is unique. The one you start with, at least, it is a laser cutter for like surgery, and the only way to kill them is to cut off their limbs, not their head. I think it's like painted on the wall in blood in the first level of Dead Space 1. It's like, don't shoot their head or go for their limbs or something like that.
Yeah, you find out pretty early on. And there's also recently been a remake of Dead Space. So if we're talking about Dead Space, there's originally, I think, 3 games. There's apparently 2 animated movies. I just found that out like this week. Then they made a remake of the game recently, and I'm hoping that'll also be followed up with sequels, but I don't know. I haven't looked at
the remake's really good. Also, worthy of note, there is an Isaac Clarke skin in Skate 3. You can skateboard as Isaac Clarke. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, and you can play as him in PlayStation All-Stars. He's actually one of my favorite characters to be. He's pretty sick. It's just PlayStation Smash Bros, basically. But anyway. So what is our relationship to the series? When did you first get into Dead Space? First time you remember playing it or hearing about it?
Oh, I was probably in middle school, I think, because I'm young. But my friend had, I think, all of them at that point, because Dead Space 3 came out in 2004. No, 13. I don't know. I think Dead Space 3 had just recently come out, whatever year that was. But he had all of them, and he had played through all of them. So when I left his house that day that he was showing it to me, I just took them all with me, started playing them.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't get into it till after they were all already made. I heard about them, but I never played them until college. And it was actually just not that far after I was of drinking age. So I finally started kind of figuring out my way around drinking, and I made the terrible mistake of playing the first Dead Space in the middle of the night, slightly buzzed, which really shouldn't be that big of a deal. But the way the game is, where things just suddenly jump out at you, not having like full control and like reaction time, it sucked. It really sucked. In every room you go into, you never know when something's coming out at you, where they're coming at you from. You can't do like the headshot, and some of them are just shaped weird. So you're like, wait, where's the limbs on this thing? And overall, the experience was actually kind of scary. And I feel like I remember not sleeping that night, not because it was just that terrifying, but because like it was a little scary, and it ramped up my anxiety to like 200. Like, very anxious game.
Yeah, really, really sick game.
Yeah, awesome. But yeah, that was me. And then eventually I learned of the other ones, downloaded them and played them. And I think the first one is the most, like, as far as, because jump scares get me the most. So I feel like the first one was probably the scariest. The second one had the best video game dynamics, and the third one exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Third one does exist.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. So TJ, why did we choose this game for part of our religion series?
I think I really don't know if I can think of another game where a religion plays such a big part in it. Pretty much everything that happens in Dead Space is because of Unitology. which may or may not be a parody of a real life religion.
Yeah, could be. It's possible.
Could be.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. In my mind, it's supposed to be a parody of Scientology, right?
No comment.
All right. I don't know. I thought it was interesting, partially because like it plays on a lot of the stuff that I like to talk about. As part of why I wanted to do it. Like, yeah, it is one of the few games that has a religion in it, and we want to talk more about games because that's what our listener told us they want to hear more of, video games. So we're doing it. But also, you have this like, how does religion develop? Does it develop as like a reaction to what's happening in the real world, as trying to explain it, or is there some truth to religion? Do the worst of religions actually still contribute something to society that's worthwhile? Like, a lot of these questions come up in really unique ways, like ways I don't think any other story could bring up those questions, because you get into, no, people are actually having their mind warped and hallucinations are like this stuff is actually happening. And does that invalidate the religion? I would say, yeah, but the game asks it in some pretty interesting ways. Yeah. So why do we enjoy these games? As people who are religious, I feel like these games kind of do this thing of like, oh, look, it's actually all just a hallucination. It's all just this, and it all can be explained. And it kind of paints religion in a bad light during these games. But we're both religious people who like this game. So why do we like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to see, at least to me, that this is not talking about my religion. So I've never really thought like, oh man, they're making fun of God. That's not what's happening. So,
yeah. Well, yeah. So I do think part of it's that, but of course everybody would, like, even if you were part of Scientology, you'd probably play this and be like, oh, this is clearly not us. Like, no one's going to think it's them because that's just how human brains do. But I do think even if it was Christianity, I like hearing people talk about what they think is dangerous, what they think is concerning. Like, I feel like we should challenge ourselves on what we believe. And if something's doing that, cool, more power to it. It's part of why I like South Park and because it's funny.
Yeah.
As TJ has famously said.
Yeah. And Dead Space is also just a really good game.
Yeah. Like, they're just, I feel like the intensity of, I'm trying to word this in a way that doesn't sound like, it does not make me like wet my pants or like not want to sleep or like scared in that way. But like the game, it just creates that kind of like rush that I just don't get out of any other game. I don't know how to explain it. What am I talking about?
Dead Space is special, especially like when it came out. It's unique. It's new. It's so fun, and it's kind of difficult.
Yeah, and it's just alien enough where you're never really sure what's going to happen without it feeling like complete fiction, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't feel like wild and out fantasy. Like, it's just rooted enough in reality that you're like, okay, but it's alien enough that you can't really predict what's going to happen. So I feel like it kind of just has a really good blend there that keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. It is also like, man, it's so special. It's so cool. And I don't, we're going to spoil it, but
yeah, we are.
I don't want to, because I want everyone to experience it if you haven't. But
yeah,
Isaac Clarke,
play the games that come back.
Yeah, Isaac Clarke is also kind of like the cause of all of the events in Dead Space, because the way it works, is the markers that are like the necromorph pylons that Unitology worships, and they turn everyone into necromorphs. They don't do that without a compatible life form, which just so happens to be Isaac Clarke.
Yeah. So give a little bit of background to that, because I don't want to lose anybody. The markers are like, I don't know how you would describe them. Big thingies with symbols on them. Sure. They're in a place, and they're basically reaching out, creating whatever kind of organism that causes necromorphs to happen. And the goal of the marker is basically to create enough of this necromorphs that the necromorphs kind of create their own moon, planet, whatever. They're trying to transform it into a living moon using dead organisms that have been revitalized by the marker.
Mm-hmm.
But from our human perspective, a lot of people have interpreted this differently as one thing or another, and it does have to have a catalyst, which happens to be Isaac Clarke. In these cases, there are other catalysts in different times and areas, but yeah. So, alien parasites, basically? Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah.
That create zombies? Okay.
Kind of.
How would you rate the games, though? 0 to 10, before we like dive too deep into it?
Oh, altogether? Probably like 8.
Yeah. I'm going to say 9, but I want to put a little asterisk. If you remove the third game and it was just Dead Space 1, Dead Space 2, and then the remake, 10. Like,
yeah,
Dead Space 3 really is just pulling the whole thing down a point.
Yeah, I mean, it's where we get a lot of the information, though.
Yeah, which is sad because it was not a good game. And it was, I think it's the only one that you could play co-op. Like, everything about it should have worked, but it didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
we kind of already touched on a little bit of the elements and some of the lore behind it, but TJ, how would you summarize the story of the Church of Unitology? Because that's what we're going to focus on today. There's a lot of elements in the story we could talk about, but for the purpose of our religion series, we're going to focus on the Church of Unitology. So how would you summarize their story?
So I'm trying to remember, were they just Earth government when they founded the marker? Oh, a man named Michael Altman.
Yeah, Altman was, I think he was part of EarthGov.
Yeah.
And then he made some discoveries that what EarthGov was doing wasn't great. And then they changed his message into something else later on. So
the Church of Unitology started before, they realized what the marker was. They just found it and they were like, well, this is obviously some higher power. So they founded the church and started worshiping the marker. Michael Altman realized this thing is a threat to mankind, and he was one of the founders of Unitology. So he tried to destroy it. 2 of his compatriots, Markov and the other guy, Stevens, killed him because he was trying to destroy the marker. And they were real Unitologists. This is how the real church started. So they killed him, turned his assassination into like a spark for the growth of Unitology. And they started, trying to make the marker do its job. And it's heavily censored in universe, like the true history of Unitology. So most people don't know that's what happened, because obviously that would discredit your religion a little bit if the founders killed the other founder. So
yeah,
it's really interesting.
Yeah, he from my understanding, he basically discovered what it was, had all the stuff that he said, and then after they assassinated him, they proclaimed he was a martyr, changed what he said, and then he became like the prophet. And that's like what they keep referring back to as the prophet. And then most of the people of Unitology during our time when we're playing have no idea what he actually said or believed.
Yeah.
Because it's just been warped so much.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Like the markers, the way it works is it alters your brain. It makes you less able to reason and use your logic, and it kind of slowly gets you to the point where you're easy pickings to be turned into a necromorph, and you're not immune to that unless you are compatible with the marker, which causes all the changes to start happening.
Yeah,
pretty important. It's a really pretty good organism. Good one on you.
Oh, yeah.
Evolution.
I'll say it seems like something that like evolutionarily I could see it happening out there in space somewhere, where one thing is reaching out, trying to, for its own survival, trying to turn other organisms into tissue it can use. And what it does is like anything in the vicinity, it creates like hallucinations and causes like psychotic breaks and all this. So you'll see a lot of humans just going absolutely crazy. And it's like, well, it's because the marker's making them see these things and hear these things and whatever. And of course, that just adds to the religion, and they explain it away in different ways. And the core of the religion, though, of the Church of Unitology is it wants everyone to be united, which part of that it's wanting these convergence events. So when everyone becomes necromorphs, essentially, when you die, we're all becoming one. So it actually, the religion just happens to correspond to what the organism is actually doing. So it's like, oh yeah, we'll all become one, and then eventually we'll create this one big planet, and we'll be one organism. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's not quite what we mean when we talk about unity. They're like, nah, we'll all literally be one organism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
it's perfectly crafted cult because they're just like, we'll become one, and then they see the marker turn humans into necromorphs, and it's like, oh wow, it can really do it. And this is proof of our faith. Perfect.
Yeah. Instead of seeing it as terrifying zombies, they're like, oh, hey, yeah, if we all just die and become part of this, we'll all be one. Yeah, and I think what's interesting from like a Christian perspective for me that I think of is a lot of people who, especially people who interpret the Bible more literally, including a lot of people on our show. I'm really unsure about this one. I'm not saying that this is untrue or anything. It's just one of those things to think about. Jesus talks about whenever someone asks him who they'll be married to, they've had 7 wives. And when I go to heaven, who am I going to be married to? He more or less makes a statement that like, that's not even the right question. We're all going to be one kind of deal. So there is this like understanding, even in like a lot of Christian circles, that when we die, we're all just one. We're completely united in Christ. So it's one of those where I'm like, this is a theme in a lot of religions, that when we die, we'll become one. You know, in like Hinduism, certain branches of Hinduism, it's, you know, we're reincarnated, and whenever you finally reach enlightenment, you've become one with the enlightenment, with all of creation. And it's not until you realize you too are God that you can actually achieve enlightenment. So it's one of those things that like these themes exist in real religions pretty regularly, but this is like an exaggerated form where no, we're literally becoming one organism.
Yeah. And it is, so the original marker, it's basically just like a super alien, and it is manipulating everyone to believe these things. And until it gets that compatible organism that it can, start manipulating, the church, when people die, they just preserve the body really, really well, so that when the convergence does start happening, people who died before can just can join. It's like its own weird purgatory.
Yeah. No burial, no cremation, because we got to save that body.
Hey guys, Christian here to talk about our Captivate options. That's when you send us a little extra money to just help us along with our projects. But what do you get by giving us that extra money? Well, you have access to any future online D&D campaigns. You get extra bonus question content, which we do at least 48 times a month. You can make a one-time donation here of any amount to help support the show. This helps us with our overhead. That includes the editing software that we use, the recording software that we use, the marketing that we have to do for the show, the equipment that we all need to use to help out with the show, and more. So thank you for what you do. Head out to Captivate, help us out. We really appreciate what you do. See you later.
Which, it's funny because I feel like, to me, it makes me think of like older Christian ideas, but I realize that this is still somewhat relevant. Where like some Christians are like, you can't be beheaded, you can't be cremated, we have to preserve the body and bury it because the Bible says at the end we'll all raise. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's where like back in the day it was a huge punishment to behead someone because then they couldn't raise with their body. That was part of like the Christian belief at one point. What's funny though is like we still have people, shout out to Al Mohler, who teach that we should not be cremated for that very reason, that God's going to raise our bodies and we need to preserve our bodies and treat them as holy. And I'm like, well, they're still going to turn to dust either way. Like we're still going to be ash. Like not much of a difference. But yeah, Al Mohler still kind of teaches some of that. So it's not completely done away with in the Christian faith today.
Yeah.
I feel like I probably pick on Al Mohler too much. He's going to beat me up if he ever sees me.
Yeah. You're going to get assaulted by Al Mohler.
That would be a fun newspaper. Again, I just want to reemphasize. I know I don't live in Florida now, but whenever I do make news titles, I want it to say "Florida man beat up by Al Mohler" in the headline. I still consider myself a Florida man. Yeah. So well, you mentioned EarthGov earlier, and we don't want to get into it too much because this could be a really good. And this is a teaser because when doing research for this, I was like, we need to do this. So it would be a really good, primarily political episode to cover EarthGov. But part of what they were doing that, why can't I remember the guy's name? Michael Altman. Part of what he was a part of, they were doing planet cracking. So we ran out of resources on Earth. We're no longer fossil fuels. We don't have anything to use. So they're going to other planets to use up all their resources and bring them back. So we have that for energy now. And it was really interesting how like part of that, what happened with Unitology, the Church of Unitology, a lot of people were actually fighting against that. In the Church of Unitology, they were like, oh, well, we're all going to become one. We actually need to preserve planets. We can't destroy planets for anything, which is actually a really good cause. But you're like, wait a minute. Church of Unitology is clearly the bad guy. nice, right? And then you have EarthGov, who's also pretty evil, continuously come out and they're like, hey, Church of Unitology is dangerous. We're warning against this. They constantly are warning people against the Church of Unitology, even though EarthGov is doing some pretty terrible stuff themselves. So you got a little bit of nuance there. But it does make me think. I don't want to sit on it too long. But as far as like the separation of church and state, did EarthGov have a right? Like, should they have been telling people not to join this religion because it's literally telling people to die?
I think yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those where it's like, we don't want to let our ideas cross common sense, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, I like the idea of freedom of religion. I like the idea of separation of church and state. But at some point when you're looking at this and you're like, wait a minute, this religion is literally encouraging people to become part of an alien parasite and kill themselves. Maybe we should stop that. like maybe let's let go of religious freedom for a minute and just think common sense. Let's not let that prevail.
Yeah, and it's really well crafted because Unitology does have so many parallels to real world religions. It's like, well, your loved ones died. Don't be sad for them. They're in a better place now. They're going to be part of the convergence. So they have people like celebrating death because death is the most important part of Unitology.
Yeah. It's crazy because I actually do want my death like a celebration at my funeral, but I don't want it to be, yay, he's dead. I want it more to be like a celebration of my life, but that's something different.
Yeah. Josh's funeral is going to be crazy.
Yeah. It's going to be called a funeral for the record.
It's going to be awesome.
We're going to get lit, except for me. I won't be.
No, you are too.
Oh, okay, perfect. That's how it ends. TJ lights me. Goes, look, he's lit.
Yeah.
On fire.
Like a Christmas tree. No, not a fire.
Oh, okay. Wrap me in Christmas lights?
Yeah, sort of. It's fluorescent formaldehyde.
I like that.
So we're going to prop the casket up and turn the lights off. And look, he glows.
But, I like... It really does bring up some interesting stuff because even in, thinking in our own world, there is moments of like, should the government keep people from certain branches of Islam that encourages violence? Should the government step up and say, wait a minute, these Christians that are bombing abortion centers, let's just not let that church to exist. The church that literally says we hate fags in big letters on their website. Should the government just get rid of that? Because it's clearly dangerous to society, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think they could encourage it.
Yeah. It's like, I guess there's a difference of encouraging and then stopping. But I don't even know. I feel like in a way, it does seem wrong for the church to for the government to just delete that church's website. So it's like, yeah, we don't like the message it's putting out. But also, maybe we should do something. People are getting hurt by these ideas. Maybe someone should do something about it.
Yeah.
And
I do believe in freedom of speech, but.
Yeah, me too. But that's what this game makes me think of, though. Because at some point, clearly I have a line, right? At some point, I would want us to stop the Church of Unitology. But where is that line? I don't want us to stop people from saying stuff that we just disagree with when it comes to evolution. But I do want us to stop the Church of Unitology. So somewhere in between there, I have a line of the government should stop being involved here. But I don't know exactly where that line is,
Yeah, I kind of feel like you should just be able to get a license as a combatant. I beat all those dudes up, but I did it because I'm trying to stop Unitology. So
yeah, so it's fine.
No charge. Yeah.
Trust me, if I don't, there will be alien zombies. So I have to stop the church that says we hate fags.
Yeah,
right there. That's where that happens. Oh man. So I don't know. It's not something we'll solve today, but I think it would be fun to delve back into it, talk a little bit more, maybe drag Christian Ashley into a primarily political episode and talk about EarthGov someday.
Yeah,
could be fun.
He loves talking about politics.
He sure does. Another part that I did think is fun, though, interesting, Unitology. Part of it is we're all going to be united. So from the richest person to the poorest person, no matter what your occupation is, we should all have unity. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. That part, I'm like, all right. And then it's yeah, but also you can level up in the religion if you spend enough money. Also, part of the religion's belief is that aliens created everybody. Sorry, I just feel like I need to explain the intro because we never mentioned that. But you can level up if you have money. You could just be I'll give this much money. And then they're oh, well, now you're a bishop or whatever. So you want to break down how does money play a part in Unitology, TJ?
Yeah, so it's very human aspect of, if someone can't afford it, they will pay to be seen as better. So you can donate to the church to rise up in ranks. So people do, obviously. Everyone would.
Yeah. And it gets into a lot of weird questions with it, because it's like, on a religion that's based around unity and all being one. I mean, we could say this of Christianity too, right? Like, we're not supposed to prioritize the poor or the rich or anything, but you kind of do still see it. Someone donated a lot of money to a church. They might get a pew or something named after them, or, whatever, like education centers in the Christian colleges. And it is difficult because all religions, even good religions that aren't Unitology, you have to have some money. Like, if you're going to have a building, that costs money. If you're going to go help poor people or hungry people, guess what? That costs money. If you're going to go start a college to help educate people who can't afford it, that also costs money. So, like, money is a necessary component to religion, to any structure, organization. So kind of figuring out where it fits is difficult. I think we would both agree Unitology does not do this right. If you're going to say poor and rich are equal, but also if you give us enough money, we'll upgrade you. That's not equal, right?
Yeah, I don't even think they try.
Yeah, like they don't really pretend. They just say the words and then they don't question it.
Yeah, I feel like in the pamphlet somewhere in there, just as we love rich people.
Yeah, everyone's equal. Rich people are better, in parentheses.
Yeah, I don't know. It does kind of suck because I would like to know how it's broken down, but the only like ranks that we actually see in game are vested and overseer. Like, I want to know what the breakdown is.
I think you get 3 if you watch the animated movies.
Yeah, that's Enigma.
Yeah, but I don't feel like watching the animated movies. Maybe I should. I do like the stories. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah, and they do like, again, very like human organizational thing of introducing yourself by your rank.
Yeah. Which is more or less going, this is how much money I have.
Yeah.
I am Rich Bags Noel. Sorry.
Yep.
My bad. I meant to say poor as dirt Noel. Please still love me. We'll all be one day. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Oh, man. But yeah, I mean, yeah, this is like cartoonishly, like, we're all going to be one, but also we like rich people. But I mean, it still does happen.
The whole religion is cartoonishly evil.
Yeah, that's true. But you could still see aspects of it in real religions, which makes you kind of question again, like, where the lines are. Like, I do think that a lot of churches, pass the plate around. We talk about, hey, how much you're going to give. We have an entire worship service that's around giving your money sometimes. And I don't necessarily think of it as a bad thing because we need money to do good things for the church. But I do often wonder, when have we gone too far with this, And when have we not gone far enough? Should we be paying our pastors more? A lot of pastors being like dirt poor, it's almost like that's a bragging right. Like, our pastor has to work a job to continue to work. He doesn't care about money at all. And I'm like, okay, but maybe we should support our pastors. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but it's definitely like upsettingly realistic. Like, I could see the Church of Unitology being founded in real life and being successful.
Oh, yeah. Like, if it wasn't for the game. Like, it even sounds good. Unitology. We'll all be one day. Everyone's equal. Like, I'm like, oh. For those who don't know, TJ and I run a podcast. It's about church unity. So that's what part of why. That's another reason I thought it would be fun for us to do this. Because it's like, we have an entire podcast dedicated to the church pursuing unity. And then it's like, let's talk about when unity's gone too far.
Yeah. And this is the only warning we're giving people. This is the plan. We found a marker.
Like, in real life, we found a marker? Are you exploiting us?
Yeah, I didn't tell you.
We're starting the real Church of Unitology.
Yeah. And this
After
episode is the only time we're telling anybody.
Evil.
Yeah. We're warning everyone right now. Just to make it as fair as possible.
Well, so with that, let's jump over to some of those deeper talks. We're going to get to that unity thing a little bit more seriously later, but I don't know if TJ knows this, but I like talking about logical fallacies. I'm doing it for another show called Dummy for Theology. Check it out. But one of the things here that's interesting is like, I know TJ has, but for those listening, if you've heard of the God of the Gaps kind of theory, it's like we have a natural phenomenon and then we try to explain it away with religion of some sort, how does the sun rise or fall? God put it up there and he takes it down. And then as we learn more in science, we're like, okay, well, now we know that happens. So here's this other thing that's unexplained. I think, like we just keep putting God places that we can't explain with science. And then as we explain it, we're like, oh, well, there's still a mystery here. We still don't know how children are born. So that's the mystery now. And, it just keeps going and going because that's just what we do. It's called the God of Gaps. Also, logical fallacy is the correlation causation fallacy that I wanted to bring up. And it's very closely tied to this idea of the God of the Gaps, where like we see something and we take the correlation to be the cause. Every time I trip, I happen to hear a cow moo. So I think that me tripping is making the cow moo. When maybe it's just a correlation. Maybe I just happen to trip a bunch right when cows are moving. Or maybe the cow mooing is what made me trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so we just take something that happens to be coinciding at the same time and we create a cause with it. That's like the fallacy. So the God of Gaps, correlation causation theory, they both are tied to a lot of what happens here in Dead Space. Because what you see is like, hey, this marker comes, we're all becoming one. There's this convergent event. And people are kind of explaining that away as, oh, we're all going to be one in this religion. So we'll worship the aliens. They must have created us. This is our purpose. So they're explaining this random phenomenon with their religion. And because stuff that happens with the marker just happens to correlate with what they were already teaching, they use that as, oh, so we were right. As opposed to saying, oh, this is just a correlation.
Yeah. Well, the marker does kind of implant those thoughts.
Yeah. Makes it a little bit harder. Now, did it plant the thoughts of the religion, or does it just plant the thoughts of we need to be one and the religion happened to already be there?
The religion just happened, but all the steps were things that the marker does. Because it's.
Do you think
it's like the
understanding logical fallacy would help you from falling for the marker's mental traps?
Probably not. It is literal brainwashing
and hallucinating.
Yeah,
it's really hard when you can't trust what you see or hear. Yeah, that's true. But it's still interesting. They still try to explain what's happening away with religion. And in this case, they're being manipulated to do so. But a lot of times we don't need that manipulation. We do that to ourselves a lot of times.
Yeah.
We actually don't need an alien to manipulate us.
Yeah. For like the lower ranks in the religion and people who aren't in it, that it's, you should be able to see it. Like, wow, that's really convenient that your super alien can do all that stuff.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. Yeah, that's fair. But anyway, so that also gets to church unitology. There's a lot of debate in the fandom. Is this a cult or is it a religion? I don't think a lot of people know the difference. In fact, I don't think anybody really knows the difference. It's pretty difficult to actually define the difference between the two.
Yeah.
TJ, how would you define the difference?
Cult.
Yeah, but like what makes a cult different from a religion?
Well, to me, I think a religion has to do good for its people, at least. At the very least. I think the religion has to be good for its followers.
So what about... Sorry, I'm being annoying. What about like some of those old Christian monasteries where they gave up everything and lived a life of like nothingness? Because
I think there's benefit
one day
there.
they'll die and they'll go to heaven. I'm sorry?
I think there's benefit there.
A bit of like good for them?
Yeah, I do. It's, unmaterialistic, detach yourself from the world, and you're not going on helping people.
What about people who are like tortured for the faith? Are they like actually part of the cult? They should have given it up because once they started being tortured, it's no longer a religion.
Well, that's not the case. The religion itself is still good for its followers.
The people persecuting them is what was bad, not the religion.
Yeah.
So if the beliefs are harmful to the people following the beliefs.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think that's quite how I would define it. I do find it difficult. For me, I think it's more about fringe. Just kind of thinking like the history of the word of cult. Like I feel like it's outside of the normal belief set around that religion. So I think a cult is like a new group that branches off from a religion that has beliefs that's outside of that main religion. And I think that's why a lot of people think of Mormonism as a cult and they don't think of them as Christians. For me, the main difference is the tenets that we say, this is what makes someone a Christian, is do you believe Jesus is Lord and died for your sins, rose again? If you pass that test, you're a Christian. Mormons pass that test. So I think they're just Christians with weird beliefs. But you have some people who've fallen from Christianity. Let's just because these are the ones I'm more familiar with, so these examples are easier. It's like, well, actually, I'm the real Jesus. I am come back. This is me. Follow me as Jesus and drink the Kool-Aid. We'll all jump off this cliff, whatever, And yes, I'm mixing metaphors a little bit in examples, and I'm sorry. But you know what I mean. And I think at that point, you're no longer Christian. You're no longer following Jesus. You're saying, I am Jesus. So I think for me, a lot of times cult is this fringe belief that's separate from the main belief. And also, I would say that there's an element of cult that has to have a main person to follow. Someone who's like, it's really all about celebrity worship, more or less. So Elevation Church is getting pretty close, but they still passed that Christian test. Do you believe Jesus rose and died? Died and rose. Anyway, but that's where I think this gets tricky, because they kind of have Michael Altman as this prophet who created a new sect of religion with some weird fringe beliefs, except for Michael Altman never believed these things. So it's kind of like we're all worshiping him and his beliefs, but not really, because that's not really his beliefs. And Unitology has gotten big enough that I'm like, I'm not sure it's still a cult, or if it's got, because at some point I've heard it explained in one of my world religion classes in UNCW. When a cult gets big enough, it just becomes its own religion. Like Christianity started as a cult. We were some weirdos who branched off of Judaism with our own thoughts, our own beliefs, and we kind of created our own little community and all helped support one another. Then one day it just got big enough that we stopped considering it a cult and thought of it as a religion, and that's how Christians happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I still think it's difficult.
I mean, Unitology does like kill its followers.
Yeah. Is this another one of those common sense things? Sometimes it's just like, hey, what everybody's literally telling you, go kill yourself. That's part of the belief. That's a cult.
Yeah.
All right. I like that. Common sense approaches. That's the theme of the day.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't need to think that much deeper.
Yeah. Sometimes, should the world government speak out against religion if that religion is telling you to kill yourself? Yes.
Yeah.
Is that religion a cult if it's telling you to kill yourself? Also, yes.
Yeah. I feel like in this scenario where we do have outside knowledge that what they call God is just alien, like advanced alien intelligence.
Yeah. Having that third person perspective does help.
Yeah. I think that's a cult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we talked about it a little bit earlier, but could you redefine, because I feel like my example wasn't very good. What is the convergence event? They keep talking about in the Church of Unitology, there's a big convergence event. That's what they're hoping for. What is that?
I don't think you explained it that poorly. The convergence is
That's good.
Dead bodies who converge into one and form a brethren moon, which is a planet-sized sentient alien with telekinetic and telepathic powers.
Mm-hmm. You do get to fight one of those planets in the third Deadpool, but it still isn't that fun somehow.
Dead Space.
I said
You
planet.
said Deadpool.
Dead. Oh, that's funny too. Deadpool could probably take it on.
Yeah. It is funny. Like, we have a few sentient planets in comics, like Mogo and Ego.
Star-Lord's dad. Yeah.
Yeah. But one of them's a Green Lantern, so.
That is cool.
It's pretty sick.
Yeah. All right. We mentioned it a little bit earlier. I want to do this before we jump to our wrap up. When do we take the unity thing too far? So we talk about like what this conversion event is. Like, obviously, that's too far. When we're all trying to kill ourselves to become one big zombie planet with psychonetic powers, that's definitely too far. But is there a point before then? Like, we do our Church Unity podcast, but I don't think either of us would say unity at any cost. And we also think there's a difference between unity and uniformity.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, is that they aren't preaching unity, but they're teaching uniformity. They're practicing uniformity. It's not really the same.
Yeah, I agree. When you're literally all becoming the same giant, massive body, that's just uniformity. Of course we can't. It's like when there's no potential for disagreement. That's not unity. That's just uniformity. But how would you define the difference between unity and uniformity in your own words?
Well, in unity, you can be different and pursue the same goal. In uniformity, you can't. You have to be the same. That's what uniformity means. Yes.
And that's where, like, again, cartoonish example. If you're all becoming one organism, that's uniformity. But, like, I feel like this happens a lot in our church, too, where, like, we try and get people, oh, no, you're disagreeing, you're starting ruckus. You can't do that because, Christ told us to pursue unity. No, I can disagree with you and still pursue unity.
Yeah.
We don't have to believe the same things to have unity. There's TJ, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think both TJ and I are in the camp where we think you can have same-sex relationships and love Jesus, be saved. We're queer affirming people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we have friends who probably take it a little bit further than us on the progressive side, who think that there's no real sexual ethics, that we don't have to care about that at all. And we probably don't agree with that. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have people on the right of us on this very podcast with, Christian Ashley, Matthew Winter, who would say, no, same-sex relationships are sinful. That's bad. And we're able to disagree and still work on projects like this podcast together for a shared goal, even though we don't agree. And that would be unity. If we demanded they agree with us on everything, that's us trying to pursue uniformity, I would think.
Yeah, I think a big problem when it comes to this topic is that uniformity does bring unity. So it's kind of, if everyone is the same, of course you are also unified.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would say that's, in my opinion, that's not what God wants, right? Like to me, God wouldn't have made us all with different minds, different ways of thinking, different ethnic backgrounds, size, heights, personalities. Like we wouldn't be created this way if God wanted us all to be literally the same.
Yeah.
God had the ability to decide that we're all just literally going to be the same, and he didn't go with that plan. So I think God likes diversity in our unity, and probably isn't a big fan of uniformity.
No, I don't think there is a limit to unity, how far unity can go. If the entire planet wasn't in one accord, I don't think that would be a problem. It might be boring, might not be very exciting, but I don't think it would be a problem if we were all exactly the same.
Yeah, that's boring.
I mean, I think at that scale, it's still not a problem because there would be no problems, but it's not the same. We're not meant to be uniform. Do you think we are meant to be unified?
That's just it. Like you said, it would be boring. And I think that's actually part of the point. Like, God created everything, and he said that it was beautiful, that it was good. And I think he created everything in diversity. Like, I had to take a class on biodiversity. When you just see how different the planet is, and yet still the same, like, it's crazy. I think the same thing's true as us. I don't like having friends that are too similar to me. I like having friends that are different. I like when TJ talks about hockey, and I have no idea what he's talking about, because that's a perspective. That's something that I couldn't conjure up in myself. Talking to somebody about Kingdom Hearts who've had the exact same experience as me and saw it all the same is boring. I love Kingdom Hearts. But if for some reason TJ played A level, thought it was the worst game ever, I would probably enjoy that conversation more because he's different. So I think unity and diversity is just a lot more beautiful than uniformity. And I think that's what God desires. All right. So you ready to wrap this one up? Tell everyone about our new convergence that we have planned, or...
Yeah, well, they got all the information they get. Just watch out.
Just watch out. All right, then let's wrap this up. For those who are patrons or on Captivate or have subscribed on Apple Podcasts, you can get a bonus question separate from this, or TJ and I will be answering what would be the most effective weapon we have at our homes for fighting necromorphs. So hang in there for that. For now, we got to give a recommendation. There's a lot I could recommend. I'm going to recommend you guys watch that the Dead Space animated movies, because I haven't seen them yet, and we could just watch them together. It'd be fun. Jump on Discord, talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Okay, what about you?
I have no idea. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I've recommended Dead Space. Play Dead Space. Yep.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Then again, guys, remember, rate and review our show. You do it on Spotify with the 3 dots. Scroll down where it says rate. You do it on Apple Podcasts. Scroll down where it says rate and review. But if you're on your laptop, do us a favor. Go to podchaser.com. That helps us the most if you rate and review there. Again, thank you to our supporter, Russell Gentry. You keep the lights on. You help us keep doing this thing called podcasting, and we appreciate you. You rock, man. Remember, if you want to hear more of our annual theme of religions, you can do so using the playlist link that's in the description down below. And of course, we need you all to do one big important thing for us, and remember that we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.
Do you love systematic ecology as much as I do? Of course you do. So why don't you hop on over to the Systematic Ecology shop and get yourself some merch. We have clothing like hats, extra soft t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies. We even have glassware and mugs. One of my favorite coffee mugs that I use every morning is a coffee mug that has on it, share the faith, share the geek. Yeah, I get my geek on first thing every morning, thinking of systematic ecology. And I know you need to hop over there and get you some merch, represent us out in the wild, out in the public, and let people know that you too like to share the faith and share the geek.
Hey guys, Christian here to talk to you about the AMP Network. That is the Anazao Ministries Podcasting Network. That's what we do for all of us here together. You can follow the whole network in a single feed on Spotify at Anazao Ministries Podcast or on the network page on Apple Podcasts to just see what we're all doing. And what are we doing? Well, we have plenty of things here. We've got the homily. You love Pastor Will? You want to hear Pastor Will preach? You hear the man doing a homily there? It's amazing. The man does spectacular work for Holy Trinity Lutheran Church in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Then we have the Whole Church podcast. If you want to hear Joshua and TJ talk to different people from around the church who have very different views on how things should go, check it out there. You want to go to My Seminary Life? You want to get some more Brandon Knight in your life? Who doesn't want more of that? Go there, hear about the man, discuss his time at seminary, which is what he used to do. Now he's on other topics, and just head out there for what the rest of the man can do. Hear a lot of good stuff that way. Now you can head over to Let Nothing Move You. That's my podcast where I go through the Bible chapter by chapter, verse by verse. I started with Luke, then I went to Romans. Now I'm in Genesis, and I'm moving on from there. It's a good time if you want to hear how I view the Bible, how things should go there. You can do that. You can go to Dummy for Theology, where you can hear Joshua Noel discuss the various theological topics that he has there in an attempt to show every side of the big discussions, leaving you with more questions and answers. If that infuriates you like me, but you still want to listen, head out that way. You can go to the Bible After Hours. We have the foul-mouthed preacher there, and he's going to deliver things that are not ready for every ear to hear, but sometimes you need someone to be a little filthy out there just to give a more progressive view of the church, to challenge the status quo of what is happening here. Do you agree with him? Do you not like him? How are you going to know if you don't listen to him? And finally, we have save best for last, the Clydes. Taylor and Elizabeth Clyde. You need some more Pangalangin in your life, like all of us do, then head out there, see what's going on in their own life, in their own ministry, so you can hear the devotions and everything going on in their lives. Once again, that's the Anazao Ministries Podcasting Network, AMP, and we love you guys. See you next time.